Well, hello, and welcome to another episode by Financial Learning. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the news that turned the high performance computing sector on its head. Then we're going to talk about the Bitcoin mining stocks and what exactly happened with them today in terms of the news that was released. And finally, I'd like to talk about one specific Bitcoin mining stock that I believe stands out from the rest. So without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, if you've been paying at all to the news today, you would have learned about a new company called DeepSeek. This is the news that put the entire high performance computing sector as well as the chip sector on its head. It's been making waves all day today, and let's learn a little bit more about this company. So, DeepSeek was founded in 2023 in the country of China. Later that year, they released their first AI large language model. But what really set them apart was just this past month, they released a brand new AI model that was boasted to be on par with one of the US competitors, ChatGPT maker OpenAI. Now, what sets it apart was the fact that it was more cost effective in the use of those NVIDIA chips. So that's what's actually driving a lot of the power consumption for specifically ChatGPT, this OpenAI company. So, what else really helped drive the popularity of this DeepSeek company was the fact that it became more widely accessible on both the Apple App Store as well as the Google App Store. But it was actually following the US presidential inauguration that a paper was released that actually set the market in panic. And that was another DeepSeek model called R1 that showed advanced reasoning skills, like the ability to approach a math problem with significantly cheaper than a similar model sold by OpenAI called O1. So really, this is able to do some high performance computing with a lot less power, and it's pretty effective. So again, if you are a high performance computing type company and you've already invested a heavy amount of resources for the amount of power draw that would be needed for companies such as ChatGPT, now they may be questioning the amount of infrastructure they put together. Is that really necessary? Will this DeepSeek company really be able to outperform ChatGPT with the use of those NVIDIA chips? And if that's the case, will there need to be as many of these NVIDIA chips made in order to be able to get the same outcome of this high performance computing model? All right. So after the news, a lot of these Bitcoin mining companies did start to sell off. It was a very red day, a deep, deep red for the entire Bitcoin market. If you look at this heat map, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I know I mentioned some chip makers as well, but if you've been following this specific channel, you know that we spend a lot of time covering these Bitcoin mining companies. So I'd like to first point out that the largest areas, of course, are going to be the ones with the largest market cap. There are a couple of digital exchange companies as well on this heat map. So I'm not going to be talking about Galaxy or even the APLD or the NB2. We're really focusing on these Bitcoin mining companies. But you can see overall, this sector was extremely red for the day. A lot of panic set in. I'm going to be very interested to see what kind of short interest volume was accumulated throughout the day. We'll have to take a look at that later on this trading week, but I just wanted to show you that the entire sector is actually down today. And we're going to take a little bit of a review and kind of understand what could have caused this. And I'll give you a hint. It has to do with high performance computing and AI, more specifically, the data centers that would be utilized for this specific industry. And as you know, many of these Bitcoin miners have been pivoting or looking for parallel pathways in order to get into this specific high performance computing market. Now, with that, yes, you are diversifying the company, but you are also opening them up to some form of risk. And this is just an example from today with this DeepSeek news that is one of the risk issues that comes into play. So we'll talk a little bit about each of these companies, specifically the ones I've been covering, and we'll see how much of this high performance computing they actually have on the table currently and what they have coming down the pipeline. All right, before we jump into the details for each of these Bitcoin miners and look at their exposure to this high performance computing and AI sector, let's take a look at this article on bitcoinnews.com. It explains why some of these Bitcoin miners are making the decision to switch to the AI and HPC. So, of course, we all know in April there was the Bitcoin halving. When that halving took place, the amount of Bitcoin received per block was cut in half. So, while the level of difficulty for the actual miners didn't change, their rewards were cut in half. It's going to become more and more difficult in order for these companies to get back on track and be mining the same amount of Bitcoin. And the only way they can do that is by expanding their hash rates, which is a very capital intensive operation. So, what some of these Bitcoin miner companies have chosen to do, because they already have the power infrastructure put in place, it does make somewhat sense for them to look at pivoting and utilizing some of their existing infrastructure and grid space for this high performance computing and AI. So, taking a look down a little bit further, you're going to see that in order to adapt and survive in the tech world, a lot of these miners have chosen to pivot to the AI and HPC. So, most of it is in order to open up another revenue stream. So, it's allowing them to diversify. But as I mentioned earlier on in the video, with that diversification means you are opening yourself up to risk for a whole new sector. Now, while Bitcoin mining itself is obviously at risk for the price of Bitcoin, that is just one specific factor that these miners have to deal with. So, whenever you open up the door and start to diversify and put yourself in the HPC and the AI world, you now have to worry about some of the other macroeconomics involved. And then you also have to realize that it is very crowded at the moment. There is a lot of different companies that are looking to get into this HPC data center network. So a lot of these miners, they're not the first ones to do that. You can take a look a little bit further down in this article. You're going to see that Core Scientific and TeraWulf were one of the first few that did do this. We'll take a little bit of a look down here and says one of the main reasons why a lot of these miners do this, as I mentioned, is because of their access to power. So that gives them a little bit of an advantage over other companies that maybe they're interested, maybe they have the capital, but they have to actually get themselves some of that grid space and get themselves put into specific infrastructure. So what a lot of these Bitcoin miners did was they were able to work out specific contracts with power providers. They already locked in some of the lowest rates of power from these providers. So in order for them to make the pivot and switch to the HPC AI, they're able to still keep that lower rate. So that does help them. However, there is one main difference between the Bitcoin mining operations and the high performance computing and AI. These high performance computing and AI industries, they require you to be running around the clock 24/7. So now you have to look at additional backup situations, whether it be very large batteries or potentially some form of natural gas or propane or some other way in order to be able to continue operating these databases in the event there's some type of power loss. If the grid happens to go down, whether it be from the cold weather storm situations that we've had throughout the US these past few weeks, or any other types of reasons, any other natural disasters that could cause the power grid to come into flux. So again, that's another risk for jumping into this high performance computing sector, as well as the AI sector. Again, if you're a Bitcoin miner and you have one of these situations happen, you could just power down your site and you can wait. Sure, you're going to lose a little bit of Bitcoin, but you don't have a customer that's going to be upset because you just shut them completely down. These customers rely on these data centers in order to keep their websites and other types of software up and running at all times. The cloud is a massive, massive network and it requires a lot of computing power and a massive amount of energy to keep everything running simultaneously. So again, as I mentioned, you can see in this article, they do talk a little bit about TeraWulf and how also they got in with Core 42 and Core Scientific. They worked with a company called CoreWeave in order to be able to repurpose some of their existing power infrastructure in order to get into this HPC network. So I've given you a couple of the pros as well as some of the cons into diversifying into this high performance computing sector. And then of course you can see from today's prices Some of these specific Bitcoin mining companies, they saw a much larger loss compared to some of the other stocks. So we're going to take a look at the different Bitcoin mining companies and see just how much exposure they have to this high performance computing sector. All right, and first up, we're going to look at IREN. This is Iris Energy. They put out this in one of their investor presentations not too many months ago, and they gave an AI HPC update. So you can see here their AI cloud services, they've already started to invest. They already have 1,896 of these NVIDIA H100 and H200 GPU, that's graphic processing units. They've already installed these and they're already contracting some of their capacity. Also, taking a look at the very bottom, you can see here they talked a little bit about this liquid cooling infrastructure at the Childress as well as the Prince George in order again to support some more of these NVIDIA GPUs. Now, they did talk a little bit more about the Childress. They're getting ready to make the decision if they're going to be installing more of these Bitcoin miners or if they're going to move forward with these GPUs. So I think it's going to be really important, especially with the news that comes out now. Will these Bitcoin mining companies decide to take a step back and reassess how much exposure they want to put themselves in this AI HPC sector? All right, next up on our list is going to be Hut 8. We're going to take a look and see exactly how large of a Bitcoin miner they are, and then how much do they have exposure to in terms of the HPC and the AI. So we're going to skip this text here. We're going to go straight down into some of their operating metrics. You can see they had a total self-mining for the month of December at 89 Bitcoin. That's not really that large of a Bitcoin amount mined compared to some of their other Bitcoin mining competitors. So let's take a look at it a little bit further down to see what other type of revenue streams do they have. They have a really nice breakdown by their different sites here. You can see Vega, that first site, that's actually used as a hosting site. And then the next three are all self-mining for Bitcoin. And you're going to see they do dabble again into some hosting. And then here's where I really want to pay attention to. Let me highlight them here. I'm looking here at these 5 different sites. They're all used for high performance computing. You can see they have about, I'd say a little over 3 megawatts they have dedicated to high performance computing. So, and then they do have some power sales as well. Overall, for all their different sites, they have a total of about 1 gigawatt. So again, this is Hut 8. They are definitely exposed to this high performance computing sector with AI, and they have a little bit of Bitcoin mining as well. So they seem to be kind of diversified for both of these two sectors. All right, and here's an example from CIFR Mining, that is ticker CIFR. Just wanted to point out they have dabbled with their capex in terms of some of this data center for their HPC and AI. So you can see here that they added about 100 megawatts capacity for that data center portfolio. You can see here they give a little bit of details about where it's located. So it's here, it says 100 megawatts at their Stingray data center site. In order to expand that pipeline, they plan to have this energized in 2026. So again, even Cipher Mining, they are looking at opportunities to get into the data center sector, specifically with that high performance computing and AI. Next up on our list is Bit Digital, that is ticker symbol BTBT. This article is actually just from a couple days ago on January 24th. You can see they just secured a B200 GPU contract with one of their key customers. So again, they too are in this high performance computing and AI sector. And you can see they talk a little bit about some of the details behind it, some of the terms as far as the customer. They have about 58 of these NVIDIA B200 servers. So again, there's a lot of money being invested into this HPC AI sector for Bit Digital. Take a look at this next company. This is Hive Digital Technologies, that is ticker symbol HIVE. We're going to take a look at one of their news articles that they put out. This one has again to do with how they're going to be pivoting from some of their Ethereum mining in order to be able to support this AI HPC space. So let's read this little section here. It says the company is converting its 38,000 NVIDIA data center GPU cards previously used to mine Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies into an on-demand GPU cloud service. And then the Hive president, CEO, states that they're on track to have 3,200 GPUs of the most powerful NVIDIA A40s up and running in the AI HPC space by the end of October. This article came out just a couple months ago, but just wanted to point out yet again, here's another Bitcoin mining company that is starting to spend a decent amount of CapEx on some of this HPC AI. So again, as it is a very capital intensive in order to be able to purchase these additional GPUs, the same amount of money could be used to purchase more Bitcoin miners in order to increase the exahash rate for these Bitcoin mining companies. So you really have to make the decision, do you want to be the top line of Bitcoin mining companies and have the highest exahash rate and be able to mine the most Bitcoin each month? Or do you want to look to diversify your portfolio and offer this GPU service for these high performance computing and AI customers? So that is something that a lot of these companies are going to have to make the decision on. And we're starting to see more and more of the companies making that choice to add these GPUs into their fleets and go ahead and join the HPC AI sector. All right, next up on our list is going to be Riot Platforms. This is ticker symbol RIOT. You can see here they put out a update for their Bitcoin mining operations and a pivot. So you can see here that they have a hash rate guidance reduction to just 38.4 exahash per second for the remainder of 2025. And we're going to take a look exactly on what they're planning on doing for this. So you can see here that they halted 600 megawatts of their Bitcoin mining expansion for the AI and HPC sector. So taking a little bit of look at these details, you can see that they're still under negotiations. They haven't actually made that final decision to kind of pivot over, but they are discussing this with a couple of subject matter experts to see if this is going to be the right move for them. But you can see again, because of the decision, you can see exactly how much Riot was affected by the news. Compared to some of the other companies, I believe that they were still all right. They were kind of on par with Mara and CleanSpark in terms of the sell off for today. But some of these other companies that are very heavily invested into HPC and AI, they saw a rather large drop in their share price value. So again, as of right now, they still have 400 megawatts already energized at that location for the Bitcoin mining. And they were discussing the second phase, this phase two for the 600 megawatts. And if they were to choose that, they would be reducing their guidance from 46.7 exahash per second down to that 38.4 exahash per second. So it's going to be a tough decision for Riot. Will today's events possibly change the CEO's mind? Are they going to stay a pure Bitcoin mining company based off of what happened in the sector? It's going to be very interesting. I guess timing isn't too bad for Riot. They're going to be able to make this decision without impacting them financially. So I'm interested to see the next few weeks what decision they actually make with Bitcoin mining and the HPC AI sector. All right, next up on our list is Bitfarms. That is ticker symbol BITF. You can see here from one of their investor presentations, and this one was actually from January 2025. So if you want to get more information, it's about 18 pages on their investor presentation website. Go ahead and take a look at that. But what I want to focus on is this nice breakdown talking about their capacity for 2025. So you can see that they're expected to support about 390,000 NVIDIA H200s or 38 exahash per second. So again, another company that's on the fence with how much to invest in Bitcoin mining versus that HPC AI. So you can see they have each of these different sites. They break down how much exahash would they be able to get from each one, as well as how much of these NVIDIA GPUs are they able to install to get that computing power. So again, it's a very interesting thing going on here with Bitfarms. So I'm interested to see what they decide to do moving forward. All right, next up on our list is TeraWulf, that is ticker symbol WULF. You can see here from one of their presentations, a nice little breakdown comparing their Bitcoin mining operations with their HPC AI. So you can see they have about 195 megawatts in operation for their Bitcoin mining, with plans to expand that by an additional 50 megawatts. And then jumping over to the right-hand side, they call it Wolf Compute. But this is for their GPUs. This is for the HPC AI. You can see they have 2.5 megawatts in what they call their Wolf Den already in operation. with an additional 20 megawatts expected to come online this first quarter in 2025, and then another 50 megawatts expected to come online in the second quarter of 25. So again, they have a very large build out for the second half of 25 for 178 megawatts. So this company is kind of playing it in parallel. Just like we saw some of these other companies, they've already taken the initial action and invested into the HPC AI. So again, uh, they are exposed to the risk of any type of, sector issues with the HPC and AI network. Where we just saw Bitfarms, however, they hadn't made the decision, much like Riot. They are on the fence, really deciding which path to take. So I think it's very interesting. All right, next up on our list is Core Scientific. That's ticker symbol CORZ. You can take a look on the left-hand side. They have the HPC hosting at about 900 megawatts. Some of this is their forward outlook. It says here they have over 500 megawatts. Critical to that IT load that's contract with CoreWeave. They're expecting delivery between 2025 and 2026. So they've already kind of struck a deal. They've already partnered with CoreWeave. They've already spent some of that capex in order to start funding and to get some of these sites online. And then taking a look on the right hand side, you can see their Bitcoin mining operation at 400 megawatts. So again, they are putting a larger emphasis on their HPC hosting opportunities. All right, one last Bitcoin mining company that I see them dabbling a little bit in this HPC AI network is going to be Mara. That's ticker symbol MARA. You can see here they launched in 2024 their advanced firmware for these Bitmain ant miners, but also looking at some of their non-Bitcoin revenue opportunities through some direct sale and fleets, a subscription base, different license sales. So again, they have a unique revenue stream that they boast on one of their investor presentations that's not really HPC AI or Bitcoin mining directly, but more of different services for those Bitcoin miners. And then down at the bottom, it's called 2PIC by Mara. This is another revenue stream, but this does have to do with that HPC AI. They did launch this in March of 24 as well, and this was installing some of these next gen immersion cooling technologies for data centers specifically. So again, they're looking to get into the HPC AI. These data centers would not necessarily be used for Bitcoin mining, but as I mentioned, through the AI. And you can see a little bit about them. They say they're built for unmanned operations in the harshest environments and offers one of the highest levels of power density and efficiencies. Their opportunity to earn non-Bitcoin revenue through sales, tens of millions of dollars in orders in the pipeline. So again, non-Bitcoin revenue. They're not looking to use these data centers for Bitcoin, but again, instead for this HPC AI sector. All right. And one company that I did not mention that is by far one of the largest Bitcoin mining companies, definitely the largest in just the USA, is going to be CleanSpark. They are one of the only pure Bitcoin mining companies left in the sector. As we just reviewed a lot of these investor presentations and press releases, you can see that either the companies have already made the pivot and they're parallel pathing, or they're reducing guidance and shifting to the HPC AI network, or they're potentially on the fence, but they are giving it a serious look considering making the move. CleanSpark's the only company that has not came out in any press release to state that they have plans for the HPC and AI network. Now, although that does limit their revenue stream and that does put them at a higher exposure to the Bitcoin pricing, it does remove them from the risk of the HPC AI sector. So, as we saw today with DeepSeek, with that news that came out, the entire sector went into a panic. All of these chip makers were concerned because now potentially they didn't need as large a volume of chips in order to be able to get the same amount of computing needed by this open AI platform. And then these Bitcoin mining companies jumping into the HPC AI. Again, they're exposed to this risk to where potentially their data centers may not be needed as much because now there's not going to be as much of a power draw necessary for this specific sector. So again, there's a lot that goes into play when making a decision on investing into a company. Make sure you're doing all the due diligence. And one last thing I wanted to share with you all before we finish up this video is going to be a coinspeaker.com article. And it talks a little bit about some of the difficulty for Bitcoin mining dropping in the month of January. So it says here from the title, Bitcoin mining stocks on radar as mining difficulty drops for the first time in 4 months. And then they talk a little bit about BitDeer, CleanSpark, and Core Scientific. So let's quickly jump down to this article. I want to point out a couple of interesting analyst price targets for these different companies. So just looking at the keynotes before we start reading the details, you can see that KBW report highlights unique strength for BitDeer, CleanSpark, and Core Scientific, talking a little bit about their AI ventures, efficient mining operations, and hosting services. So again, they mentioned for the first time ever that Bitcoin mining level of difficulty has dropped since September of 2024, and it dropped by about 2.12%. That may not seem like a very large percent drop, but when you're dealing with massive amounts of exahash, that could potentially open you up for an extra few Bitcoins for the month. So that's actually a rather nice thing to happen for these Bitcoin miners. So taking a look, let's go ahead and look at this first section of the article. It has to do with BitDeer. So they are expanding their horizons, as I showed you in that one article, for both mining and AI. It says that they are looking to diversify, reduce their exposure to Bitcoin mining by adding in some of this artificial intelligence and the HPC high performance computing into their portfolio with some cloud service platforms. So, again, this is one thing that the analysts are liking about some of these companies that they're willing to put out this risk. Now, of course, this article was made, I believe, during pre-market before the massive drop. So I would be interested to see if they have the same take on it now. But regardless, you can see here that they have a price target for BitDeer at 26.50. So again, looking at the last traded price at 2060, it's been a lot less since then. As I mentioned, this came out prior to this market drop that we showed at the very beginning of this video. The next section I want to talk about is going to be CleanSpark. Taking a look at them, they are considered one of the leaders in efficient Bitcoin mining, and they are getting recognized as one of the largest publicly traded Bitcoin miners that are being covered by these different bank analysts. The company has approximately 50 exahash per second planned by the middle of 2025. And again, they talk a little bit about CleanSpark boasting having one of the most efficient mining rigs, mining fleets in the industry. So, because of all this, KBW assigned CleanSpark with a price target of $19 per share. And again, this article was done prior to the trading, so they had the last traded price at 11.53. If you've been looking at CleanSpark price today, intraday, it was trading sub $10. So potentially at this price target of 19, you could 2x your specific portfolio position in CleanSpark if you were to get a position in the $9 or the low $10 range. So again, just pointing out that according to this analyst, that is where they value CleanSpark Inc. Looking at the last company here, this is Core Scientific. They highlight some of their AI hosting capabilities as well as some of their Bitcoin mining. We already looked at the slide that kind of broke out the two differences. So again, some of the things that they note about Core Scientific is that they have exposure to one of the most significant AI high performance computing hosting contracts in the sector. And they have this with CoreWeave. It's a 12-year deal. We saw that they already had some infrastructure coming online in 2025 and 2026. So again, along their Bitcoin mining, they do have this hosting infrastructure. So with this news, the analysts give Core Scientific a target price at $22. So looking at the traded price around $16, again, it has dropped since then. It's a nice little jump in price. This is what they have them valuing at. So again, a lot of these analysts are starting to provide better valuation based on the price of Bitcoin and based off of just the HPC and the AI sectors. All right, and that wraps it up for me, folks. I hope you enjoyed this quick little update on DeepSeek and how it wreaked havoc on the chip maker and the HPC and coin mining sectors today in the stock market. And then we did a deep dive into each of these different companies, took a look at what type of risk exposures they had with the HPC AI. And then we looked at a couple of price targets based off of new analyst targets for 3 companies. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider giving it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Drop me a comment. What do you think about the HPC AI? Do you think that today's news was just not really warranted and everything is going to kind of adjust back as it should? Do you believe China's claims for the DeepSeek, or do you think that through further investigation, we're going to find that the US market is not in as much of a panic as it needs to be? And also, what do you think about CleanSpark being one of the last pure Bitcoin mining companies out there? I do believe if the rest of the companies do take that path and there's any further issues in that sector, CleanSpark should pull away from the pack in terms of share price and valuation, in my opinion, and also looking at some of these analysts' opinions. So, with all that said, hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next one.